if you're a content creator on YouTube, you may have struggled with the workload of producing videos. As we all know, creating videos can be a very time-consuming process, and there is a lot to consider. Whether it's forming your ideas, actually filming the content, editing the content, and then posting, there are a lot of components to making YouTube videos. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about some tips to producing quicker and more efficient YouTube content. And hopefully, if you're struggling to keep up with the pace of making YouTube videos, this video will help you out. But for those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia. But I'm also a content creator with 3 separate YouTube channels, and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, social media, freelancing, and content creation. As I mentioned, we're going to be looking at some tips for creating quicker YouTube content, so let's get into it. So I definitely think when I was first starting out with YouTube, I was under the impression that creating these videos wouldn't take that much time out of my day. I was a freelance photographer at that point, and I was trying to really kickstart my career in that arena, and I'd started YouTube as kind of like a side project. Unfortunately, I learned very quickly that YouTube takes a lot more time to actually dedicate yourself to, and especially if you really want to grow your channel, it does take quite a bit of perseverance. There are also so many things that I just didn't know about at the time, like I wasn't very skilled with video editing, and I wasn't very skilled with kind of finding a workflow that worked for me in terms of producing videos. I was very lost for a number of years, and I just really found myself in the dark a lot of the time. I really didn't know what I was doing, and I think that was the problem with why it was taking me so long to produce videos for YouTube. I also did have casual jobs and full-time jobs on the side as I had YouTube throughout the years as well, so that definitely plays a part in having a lot less time to create these videos. And I think this is where you really need to be smart when you're creating your videos and really find a workflow that suits you. But the main goal of this video is to really look at how you can make more content in less time and find some efficient ways of producing your videos so you don't feel like you're falling behind when it comes to your YouTube content. Because as we all know, if you do have a full-time or part-time job and you're doing YouTube on the side, it can definitely be easy to fall behind on your content, and especially if you don't have an efficient workflow. So we're going to dive straight into the first point now, and that is to have a relatively simple filming setup and to leave it in the same spot if possible. Now I say to leave it in the same spot if possible because I know that there's a lot of people out there who might live in small units or smaller spaces, and they may not have a lot of space to have their YouTube setup constantly ready to go. So I completely understand if that's the case, but if you possibly can, I would say to try and keep everything in the same position. So if you've got lights, keep them in the same position. Even other little things like if you've got your camera on a tripod like I do, I try to keep my camera and tripod attached most times, and I'll actually just leave it in the corner of my office, and everything's basically set up and ready to go. I just need to move the tripod into place. The same with my lighting, so I actually keep my one light in the same spot. I actually don't move it in this room at all unless I absolutely need to, and if I do need to, everything's kind of set up. I keep my light on the stand and I just move it back into place when I need it. As I mentioned, having a simple setup makes it a lot easier to film a lot of the time, so versus if you had 3 or 4 different lights and you had gels or you had a lot of busy stuff in the background, if you've got an area where you can just set things up and let it be and not have to adjust anything and you can leave your setup there, that's great. But for a lot of us, we do need to move things around from time to time, so having a really simple setup just helps with cutting down that time of even setting up in the first place. And I think for people like myself that sometimes finds it hard to focus, I try to make things as easy as possible for myself so then I can go and do said things. If things seem too overwhelming or too much effort and I've got to do a whole setup for my YouTube, like I'm going to be less likely to film that YouTube video versus if all of my equipment is basically set up and ready to go. So I really try to do that as much as I can. And even better if you can leave a lot of this equipment in the same spot of where you're going to continuously film throughout the week or throughout the month. But if not, just keep things really simple and easy to access. Now this goes for charging batteries and memory cards. I always make sure to do this ahead of time. I've gotten in a routine of making sure that my batteries are charged and ready to go for when I do film, because there is nothing worse or more deflating when you've got a half charged battery and you're like halfway through a video and you don't have another one charged. There is nothing worse than that as someone who films YouTube videos a lot. So I really make sure that whenever I finish a YouTube filming session, I make sure that my battery goes back on charge and then I know it is ready to go for the next time that I want to use it. The same with memory cards. I pretty much just immediately upload my content to my computer so I know that next time I go to use the memory card, I can delete the content and it's ready to go once again. And I can't stress enough how much finding a routine like that will save you time on the day of filming. If you know your battery's ready to go, if you know your memory cards are ready to go, then that's going to cut down so much time of needing to upload content or having to wait to charge a battery, and I just feel like it's a much more efficient process to do that. Point number 2 is to dedicate time to plan planning video outlines prior to filming. This is another tip that I would highly recommend doing because, again, it's something that I really didn't think about a lot of when I first started creating videos for YouTube. It actually took me many years to realize that I probably should be doing a video outline for most of the videos that I was going to produce. And I think it really makes the whole process so much more efficient if you do these outlines, because then you're not sitting there as you're filming videos and struggling to find the words or sort of stumbling over them, not really knowing where to go with the video, which direction you want to go in with it. That really is the worst, because you do put yourself under that kind of pressure to produce these videos and obviously get content out, but then there's nothing worse than sitting there and you're trying to film and you don't even know what you're actually saying or where to go with the video. So I really do believe that a video outline is necessary for creating efficient videos, for creating videos more quickly, and I think this is a really good entry point to the next tip that I'm going to talk about as well. Now, these video outlines don't need to be anything super over the top. Like for me, I just prefer to do more of a dot point outline. I think that that's enough. I think I've been doing YouTube long enough now that I can look at a dot point and then kind of just talk off the top of my head and know where I'm going with things and know that the next dot point is going to kind of bring me back into the video a little bit more if I kind of go astray with talking at any point. So I think that that is completely fine. You can do it as vague or as detailed as you want. I also like to have a little bit more of a scripted intro, only because I sometimes find it hard when I'm filming videos to know where to start. So that might be something that does help you out if you want to have something that's a little bit more scripted as an intro that you can kind of follow, and then for the rest of the video do more of a dot point where you can kind of talk off the top of your head. I prefer to do it that way because, as I mentioned, I really struggle sometimes getting on camera and knowing where to start with the video. So it's always good to have a few more dot points or a scripted intro that I can kind of go off. The next point is to batch film, and I think this is essential for any YouTuber. I batch film all the time, and usually I'm posting about 2 videos a week to YouTube on this channel, and usually I film 2 videos together on the same day of any given week, but sometimes I'll often do more, and that could be 3 or 4 videos depending on how many outlines I have ready. So 3 to 4 is always great to aim for if you can do it on a single day, because then you know if you're posting like once a week, if you're doing 4 videos on that one day, that is a month's worth of content for you on YouTube. And I think it really is essential, as I mentioned, because if you're constantly just trying to film and edit and upload a video each week, obviously depending on the content that you're doing, but realistically for a lot of people that is very overwhelming to be continuously having to do that each week, especially if you've got a full-time job or you've got other commitments that you need to attend to. I think it's best to batch film your videos and then you know that they're done. I would highly recommend, if you are kind of looking at a base level of sticking to 1 video a week to post, then doing 4 videos in 1 day in the month will really take that pressure off for the entire next month of you having to film. So I highly recommend doing that if possible. It's also going to ensure that if you are wanting to do more than 1 video a week, so for example, if you're wanting to do 3 or 4 videos a week or more, then you know that you can film those videos potentially on 1 or 2 days and not have to be filming daily, because that unfortunately is where a lot of creators do trip up as well. That can get very overwhelming and can lead to burnout the more pressure you're putting on yourself to produce so much content in a week. So definitely batch filming, I think, is something that most YouTubers out there will try to do, especially if you don't have a whole production team behind you. I think it's best to film a few videos at once, and then you can really stick to your YouTube schedule and feel like you're not falling behind. Now, the next tip is something that I really thought I would have learned a lot earlier on in my career, because using presets, and that's the tip by the way, is to use presets in the video editing process. Using presets is something that I do all the time in my photography career. I'm always using them through Lightroom, Capture One, Photoshop, and I always have. So using presets is definitely something you should utilize in your video editing software if you can. Having presets for different things like color grading, titles, end screens, even having subscribe buttons and other elements kind of saved in your favorites, and even having an export preset is really essential to having a workflow that runs seamlessly. Having presets or all of these elements at easy access in your video editing software will save you so much time with editing. I can't stress this enough. This is something that I think every creator should really have. As I mentioned, it is going to make things so much more efficient when you are editing. I know, for example, for me, I like to use color grading presets. I have title screens and things like that that I can easily just drag and drop when I need them. I don't have to create them from scratch again, which takes a lot more time. I have an end screen that I like to use. I've got a subscribe button, and I also have an export preset as well that I often use for YouTube. So I really do think that having a combination of all of those things is going to save you so much time and allow you to produce that content a lot more quickly for YouTube. The editing process takes enough time, so having these things to cut down that time a little bit further is really going to make your life easier. Tip number 5 is to have a B-roll database for quick access. Having B-roll ready to go for a lot of your videos, again, is going to make your life so much easier. If you've already got a lot of B-roll filmed, it's really good to start adding that into a database where you can easily access that every time you start editing your videos. Having to film extra B-roll for every video that you produce on YouTube is going to take a lot of extra time if you're doing that week to week. So I would highly recommend, again, just setting aside a day to create a lot of B-roll, or even if you're already setting out to do some B-roll, maybe just add a few extra shots in there, create a few extra shots, and every time you have the opportunity to create some B-roll shots, make sure to put them into a folder on your computer so you can easily access them anytime you'll be editing future videos. Again, I find this option so much easier than actually having to film B-roll for every video that I post to YouTube, because if I had to do that, that would literally add on hours to every video that I'd be producing, and I just don't have time for that. The next step is to just really ensure that you have a lot of flow with your process overall. So for me, my workflow looks something like write outlines on Monday, Tuesday is filming day, Wednesday is editing day, and then Thursday and Friday are posting and scheduling days. So I make sure that I have a really good workflow like that during the week so I can easily get things done, and again, it makes everything so much more efficient. If you don't have a lot of flow with producing videos, this can really hurt you as a creator because, again, things are just not going to go efficiently. You're not going to be able to get content out there quickly enough. And if you're missing any of those elements from the workflow that I just mentioned, things can get really tricky. For example, if you don't have any outlines and you go straight to filming something, you can be sitting there for hours on end thinking like, what do I actually need to do and where do I need to go with this video? But overall, I think it's really important, and I've said this on my channel before, it is important to have a schedule that works for you and your lifestyle when it comes to YouTube. I think that too many times a lot of creators bite off more than they can chew with YouTube, and they try to produce too much too soon, and then unfortunately when things aren't happening quickly enough, they tend to give up and things get very overwhelming. It leads to burnout, and they don't feel like it's worth that kind of hustle to create content for YouTube. And I totally understand because I've been there before, but as I mentioned, it's so important to have that workflow that is really efficient. Making sure you've got those days in the week that are a little bit more dedicated to different things as well is going to help you really set out your content a lot more, giving you the chance to do things like writing video outlines and batch filming like I was speaking about before. So make sure you do have some sort of flow when you are creating your YouTube videos. And then my last point for creating quicker YouTube content is to make sure that your descriptions are all pre-filled. So YouTube actually has an option where you can go in and pre-fill your descriptions. So every time you go to post a video, you don't have to go to another video and then copy and post what you've written in that description box or write a description from the beginning. I always like to make sure that a lot of my description boxes are pre-filled because it really is one less thing to worry about when you start to post your YouTube videos. Along with this, I try to make sure that my end screens are kind of how I want them, and I can easily just add the one that I want in with a click, and I just make sure that that is taken care of as well. But I think it's a really important point because a lot of people don't realize how much time it actually takes to schedule a video and to actually finalize the video itself with titles, thumbnails, everything else. So that is definitely an important point. And actually a bonus point to this is to make sure that you've got a template for your thumbnails as well, because creating thumbnails can be really time consuming. And I always like to make sure that when I'm creating my thumbnails, I have templates readily available so it cuts down the time. There is nothing worse than having to get stuck on doing thumbnails and you don't know what font to use and you don't know the layout that you want for the thumbnail. It can be really frustrating at that point in the process. So make sure you've also got some templates for your thumbnails. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video today and hopefully you learned something new from it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do because I'll be posting a lot more content like this in future. Make sure to also hit the notification bell to see more updates from my channel. Let me know in the comments section below if you've got any tips yourself on how to make quicker YouTube content or any little tips that you like to utilize. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on what you like to do. Also, let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you want to see on my channel in future because I'm always open to requests. But thank you so much as always for watching and I'll see you in the next video.